Yes. All right, and we're live. Welcome to the Racing Roots with Hamm, and I'm super excited today. Probably more excited than I've ever been in the life of my video taking and such. Thanks, Phil. Anyway, we got Phil Cavalli over here, and we got Doug Yates to my right, and it's been about 2 years in the making to get Doug on here, and it wasn't his fault, because I'm sure if I would have asked him sooner, he probably would have came up. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to wait till I got everything rolling, everything works, everything's almost perfect, and I want Doug to be impressed when he comes in. But I want things to be right for you. But I'm super glad to have you.
Oh, Dave, thank you, and thank Phil for having me on tonight. And it's usually, I'm not used to this, Dave, because we worked together for a long time.
Yes.
And usually I was asking you questions, and now you get to flip the script tonight. Right. And here we go. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely. And trust me, it's a little different for me too. But because now it's like we can be kind of joke around and that kind of stuff. Which, I mean, we joked around for many years. I mean, we were together 16 years. And there was always lots of laughs and lots of jokes and lots of this right here, So I did that for
a lot of birthday celebrations, right?
Yes.
We'd always have a monthly birthday celebration, and Dave would come up and sing or play us harmonica.
So you were talking about Whitney earlier, and I was playing harmonica one time, and she's like, "Who did that?" And then so I stepped up, and then she's like, she had to record it on her phone, But since then I do still play happy birthdays, but I do it here on the radio every morning whenever we have our birthdays at 7:10, and we'll tell everybody happy birthday, and then I'll play that at the end. So I still get to carry that tradition on, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Maybe someday I could be a special guest and come down to Roush Yates and do a break time birthday celebration.
Well, that would be excellent. We'd love to have you back. Obviously, your family, Roush Yates is a special place, as you know, and so is Yates Racing, and love you for wearing that shirt tonight.
Yeah, man.
Brings back lots of memories back in the day with my dad and Yates Racing, all the great times we had.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell a story about this shirt, or these shirts. That I still have all of them, including one special one, but I'll tell you about that in a minute, because I don't want to forget to thank our sponsor, Jersey Cape Yachts. And Phil's got the special introduction.
Phil?
Yeah, that's our sponsor, Jersey Cape Yachts. When you need to flatten the curve during COVID, there's nowhere more flat than on the water aboard a Jersey Cape yacht.
You almost feel like you're out on the water, just kind of relaxed, maybe drinking a beer, chilling. But yeah, Jersey Cape Yachts is in New Jersey, but they deliver anywhere. I'd say they deliver anywhere worldwide. So if you got a boat you want out on Lake Norman, give them a call, 609-335-6449. That's right. We're representing with our sweatshirts tonight, the Jersey Cape Yachts. And you can check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channel as well. So, and we'll go over some more of that stuff here in just a bit. All right, so back to this shirt. So I still have the shirt that's covered with oil, because one time you come in and worked with me, well, many times, but this one particular time, you came in and worked with me in the engine room there in the restrictor plate room. And somehow, I don't remember exactly what happened, but somehow I ended up getting splashed.
Yeah, we got ahead of ourselves, I imagine, and probably pulled the oil lines off and turn the engine over. Yeah, sorry about that, buddy.
Yes, that's all right. Yeah. I mean, it's worth more than it was then, I guess you could say, because now I have a story to go with it. Like this one, I can just say, well, I'll wear this to work. It's a great shirt though.
I did that earlier this year. Through COVID, we were really hustling, trying to get engines turned around. I mean, we would race on Wednesday night and have to have the engines back to the teams on Monday.
Right.
And so I was in there helping Jeremy Anderson, and we got a little out of sequence. I pulled the oil lines off and turned the engine over and just got him really good. So that happens every once in a while. When Gary Flattery was there, it happened a lot more.
Oh, yes. Flat Daddy.
About once a week, he would splatter oil on the top of the dyno cell. So we had a lot of good times. You have to laugh at yourself. And we had a good time.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. And then So, you know, we take the oil lines off, and let's say we started taking some of the rockers off, and then the engine, you know, you're going to let it rotate over all the way around.
So that thing will spin. And
yes. And I've shot oil probably 15 feet in that direction, hits the wall, and it's like, okay, not only was I in a hurry, but now I have to take the time to clean that mess up, you know?
Oh yeah, that's always a good one for the NASCAR officials too. And I never did that on purpose, but I did get Gene Saunders one time, and he was such a great guy. He passed away several years ago. So you remember when he came and brought up his Volkswagen engine up, and and we helped him out with that after he was retired from being on the road there. But good times, and you got to have fun doing this. You make some great friends in NASCAR. I mean, NASCAR has been part of my family forever, and just all the people that we met and hung out with, and the memories that we had, and the races we won, and I mean, it's funny you talk about the stories like that even more than the races. It's the birthday celebrations we had, and you sang in the break room, or the chicken biscuits we get after we win a race, or the Thanksgiving celebrations we would have. Everybody bring a potluck dinner. And traditions are really special to me and our family and everybody at Roush Yates, and I'm glad that you're a part of that, and I'm really glad to be here tonight. This is cool.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you, man. It's like being one big family, It's like, and we've had people that have left Roush Yates, like Gary Flatter, when he went up to the Ozarks, and he's comes back to visit, and we still keep in touch, and Rookie and a bunch of different people. We had Thomas on here last week. You remember Thomas? He's changing tires for the 22.
Oh yeah.
And he tunes in to us sometimes. And Beer Man Scott Trevison's down there in Daytona. He says, Jersey Cape Yachts rock. And so Scott's got his own boat, and he's hanging out down in Florida here a lot lately. So
he's doing well.
Yes, he is doing well. And and I still keep up with my buddy Chris England, of course. We were texting today, and he was headed up to the church, so he was going to tune into this probably tomorrow.
Yeah, Chris is a great guy. I mean, he came to work for us a long time ago, tearing down engines like most people start, and now he's assembling engines like you were, and I'm so proud of him. And he just does whatever it takes. He can build engines one day, and the next day he's over at the machine shop doing things over there. He's just a super guy. And,
Chris is great.
Yeah,
him and Nick Ramey too, of course. I saw your picture with Nick in the polished chrome car, GT40. What was that?
Yeah, so it's a 50th anniversary Shelby GT.
Yeah,
it's polished aluminum, but it's a car a Cobra. And it's really cool. And you were trying to do something for Nick. Nick's been with us for 28 years.
Yeah.
So to celebrate that, we kind of did something fun. Said we've been riding together for 28 years. But Nick came to work for us. My dad, we used to build the engines. He would put the crank in, rods and pistons, and he'd pass it to me, and I would do the cam up or heads on and up. And my dad got busy with the race team, and so I would find the engine sitting there not ready. So it's like, Dad, we need some help here. So we hired Nick. Nick was working for Richard Petty. He finished his last race with Richard, the last race in 1992, when that was Richard's final race. Alan Kowicki won the championship, and I saw Alan's birthday today, I think, and remembering him and Davey, we had a shot to win the championship that day. But after that race, after Richard retired, Nick came to work for us and has been there ever since. Has done a great job. And I think he counts. I don't count because I don't count wins very much, and definitely don't count how many engines we built or dynoed.
Oh gosh!
But Nick said he's built over 8,000 engines. So
somehow he knew that, right?
He did know that.
That's a lot of fingers and toes. I can't believe I asked what kind of car that was, because I know I saw Tracy's dad there, Ken Thompson, yesterday, and he said, he's like, did Doug buy him a Cobra, or does Doug have a Cobra or something like that? And I said, you know what? I don't know. I saw the picture though with him and Nick in there, but I didn't know if that was yours. Or I said, sometimes people let him borrow cars.
Yeah. Finally, I wanted that car forever, and I finally I have a friend, Bill DeBesty. He lives in California. He has a collection. He was Carroll Shelby's buddy, really good friends, and we build the engines for those cars. So David Bullock actually built that engine at our shop.
Okay.
And it's 496 cubic inches, 700 foot-pounds of torque, 700 horsepower.
Wow.
And it was in the car. Bill kept it for me. So finally I said, all right, I'm ready for that car. And it's sitting in our showroom. But Kenny Thompson, great guy. A lot of those guys, the craftsmen, could build anything. And he built our first set of headers, or my first set of headers, when I started working for my dad in 1990. Yeah. And for the longest time, he built headers for me and my dad, and we won a lot of races together with Kenny's headers. Yeah, I'm actually putting together another video of that drag car that he built with the two Chevrolet SB2 engines, and they were turned like on 45 degrees. And he built the headers go from one, I don't know, it's just weird. He built the oil pan. They both share the same oil pan.
the way he did it, it's pretty amazing. I'll send you the link whenever I get that video together. I probably showed you the video, I'm pretty sure. But he ended up selling that car.
Oh, yeah. That was an awesome car.
Yeah.
Guys like Kenny Thompson, Leonard Wood, those guys are just unbelievable. Some of the smartest guys I've ever worked around. Leonard is actually building by hand with a Bridgeport and a lathe, a replica 427 race engine. It's amazing. You should I'll send you the pictures. Lynn's been sending me pictures. I mean, he's built the manifold heads, the whole 9 yards, and that's what he's been doing through COVID to stay busy. I'm just going to build a replica 427, and what an amazing guy. I mean, talk about
he is
one of my heroes, a guy who could. I mean, he could build the engine, he could set up the car, he could change the tires, he could invent the modern day pit stop. I mean, Leonard, Glenn, Eddie, Lynn,
smart as a whip.
Those guys, I mean, they've been in NASCAR for 70 years, and that family is just amazing. And it's cool. I mean, that's the kind of people you meet in racing.
Last time I was talking to him, it was pretty much right before I left, and he was telling me about he built this lawnmower, and he had a remote control for it or something. And he was out there controlling it with this remote. And I was like, really?
Yeah. No, he is a mechanical genius. I mean, one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with, and got to work with him through our relationship with Ford Motor Company and Edsel Ford and the whole family. That was our bond and common bond. And we got to race against each other and with each other. And, when they first got my dad's heads that he and his team did, the C3 Ford head that we worked on a lot of.
Yep.
When they won that race with their third race out, Dale Jarrett beat Davey Allison at Michigan. I'll never forget how mad Larry McReynolds was, because those were our cylinder heads on that car.
That's right. Yes.
But it was a good relationship. We've shared a lot of good memories with the Wood brothers.
Yeah, for sure. I love that whenever they joined with the Ford, whenever we started helping them out, and I started getting around those guys, because I was like, I've been watching them since, David Pearson was my first favorite driver in NASCAR. Yeah. It was mainly because he had the same first name as me. I was that young, probably 5 or 6 years old. And so,
and he was pretty good.
Wow, getting around them. Of course.
Best,
that was
one of the best drivers we've ever seen.
And that was the thing too. And I had Donnie Ellison in a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned, all right, so we were talking about David Pearson and Richard Petty, and I said, well, actually, David Pearson has the better percentage record on the amount of races, because he didn't run the full-time schedule. It was wins to the amount of races. And then Donnie said, well, mine was even better. He's like, I won 10 races to the So that was kind of like that. But it was,
you know what I love about, great race car drivers are the most competitive people in the world.
Yes.
And they will never give you an inch, right?
Yeah.
Even on their opinions.
Exactly.
That's right.
Donnie Allison, Bobby Allison, Ernie Irvin, they want to win at everything. And that's what you love about them. And they'll never, that's just who they are.
Right.
And it's their most competitive people in the world. And that's what makes them great.
I guarantee you, if I get Ernie Irvin in here or whatever, I know he lives a little bit further away, but the first thing he's going to say was, I can't believe that you didn't share with me your secrets about the Pinewood Derby cars that time, because that's what he says to me when he sees me. I'm like, man, I was winning, My son's car was just zoom right down the track, and I showed Dan Bagley some stuff, and then his son went on and won. And but Ernie's son was just going, Jared, it was just going scattering down the track. No way that thing was going to be fast.
I was at Pinewood Derby once, and Andy Graves' son was in the same. Tristan, his son, was in it. And I had a camera. I was taking pictures overall, and I went down and said, Andy, why don't you flip that thing over and let me take a picture of the bottom? And he goes, no.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I had it checked out. I had mine. Yeah. I had the silver aluminum tape on the bottom, just kind of hiding things. But Tom Robinson said he was trying to log in, couldn't get on there, but he well, I'm not going to ask you that question.
Well, Tom's a great guy. I always see his posts on Twitter. He's a great follower and a great supporter of Roush Yates and Ford. And hi, Tom, and thanks for your support.
That's right. Yeah, we were joking the other day about some of the different questions to ask, and this was one that I probably don't want to ask you on air because, you might start rumors and things like that. But it's good. It's a good question, but just not one for today. How's that sound? So we got any questions coming in?
Well, we got a couple comments. Ian Tham wanted to thank you for the compliments on his dad, and he says Doug is not old enough to remember when my dad.
That's my wife Tracy. It's Hamm.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Hey, Tracy.
It's like
back on Brookshire Boulevard. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Dad worked with you. Yep.
I do. He was a heck of a guy, and I really enjoyed working with him, and I remember we won a lot of races together.
Tracy, you can slap me later.
Yeah, we well, it's like this. My dad says, "What is DHammiam?" And I'm like, "Dad, it's DHammiam." You know, so I get it. I would have done the same thing. I was sitting here trying to read this thing for this readings we're going to have for Christmas, and I'm like, I was just all over the place. But anyway, that's another story.
Rachel wanted to know what it was like growing up with your dad as a young boy. You know, you being around racing.
You know, it's I tell people all the time, the best part about NASCAR is it brought me and my dad together. It gave us an opportunity to work together, and it started young. You know, when my dad worked at Holman & Moody here in Charlotte, late 60s, and I learned a lot, worked with great guys like Waddell Wilson, Wood Brothers, User Engines, Junior Johnson. He built Leroy Yarborough's Daytona 500 winning engine, and Junior Johnson recognized my dad back then. He started building a reputation. And so when Ford stepped out of NASCAR for a little while, Junior said, "Hey, come run my engine shop. We're going to run Chevrolets." And basically took a school bus engine and made it a race engine. Set on the very first pole with that engine at Charlotte Motor Speedway with Charlie Glotzback in 1970. And then after that, Bobby Allison came to drive for Junior Johnson in 1972. And I was a little kid, about 5 years old, and we moved from Charlotte, where we were born and raised there, and moved to North Wilkesboro. Back then, 77 didn't even run all the way to North Wilkesboro. And so lived in North Wilkesboro, about 2 miles from the shop. And my dad would come home and eat dinner and then go back to work. So he would do all his machine work during the day. And then at night, he'd put his engines together, and he said, "Hey, if you want to come back, come to work with me." So I go, and he'd let me sort nuts and bolts and hang out. And I never forget. I mean, there was a cot there because he'd spend the night there on the shop floor. So I would spend the night there with him and hang out with him. And then the coolest part is, you know, in the middle of the night, Junior would come through. He would be out coon hunting. And my dad would tell me a story. He said, "I was so exhausted." And about 2 o'clock in the morning, Junior would come by, and he'd pat me on the back and said, "Boy, we're going to go win this race." And my dad said, man, he would catch another gear. He's like, all right, adrenaline would start flowing, and he'd get his engines done, and they'd go the track. And so I remember that. And one of the coolest things is on Saturdays, every Saturday morning, Flossie, their house was right there next to the shop and right in front of the race shop. And Flossie would cook breakfast for us, country ham, biscuits, sawmill, all that stuff. And she would cook breakfast for me and my sister and anybody else that wanted to come, all the guys, Shorty Edwards, Henry Benfield, all those guys, you know, all those famous guys that had been around forever. And that was my first memories. But that year in 1972 with Bobby Allison, they won 12 races. They won 10 races, finished second 12 times. And as my dad would tell, it blew up the rest of them and finished second the championship to Richard Petty. But that was really his first big breakthrough. And those are my first memories of being with my dad and growing up with my dad. But we worked all the time. I mean, we were either cutting grass or at the shop working on engines. And that carried on all the way through, you know, junior high school. And so much that, you know, I finally said, man, this racing thing is a serious deal. I mean, we were working 7 days a week. My senior year in high school, and my dad had his own engine shop. He was building some engines for Jeff Bodine and Rick Hendrick. And about after 3 months of that, I said, man, I need to go to college. I mean, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to make something out of myself. I may go to work for Ford Motor Company or who knows. And I applied to NC State, the engineering department, and got accepted and went off to school. And about that time, shortly thereafter, my dad, Ford Motor Company, called and said, hey, would you come run Harry Ranier's team, Ranier Lundy Racing? And my dad said, let me think about it. And Rick Hendrick called him and said, hey, I want you to come run my engine shop. And the Ford deal was really good. And so he went over, and Cale Yarborough was the driver, and that was Cale's last year in '86. Back then, it was a Hardee's car. They hand painted the numbers and the decals on the car back then. Wow. You know, this thing was beautiful.
The mailbox was painted up too, from what I remember, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Joey Knuckles probably did that.
Because I remember riding by on my bicycle. Right by there all the time.
That was a rough neighborhood for you to be riding on your bike.
It was, but I was, it was what it was.
but then shortly after that, they said, hey, Cale's retiring. Who are we going to get to put in the car? And my dad had such a great respect for Bobby Allison, which was my hero and still is my hero, my favorite driver. My dad and him did lots of great things, including winning the 1983 championship with Dygard on that Miller car and the 82 Daytona 500. And my dad swears the bumper was welded on. He said he wasn't that good of a welder, but he said that it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, that's what got Harold Johnson there, right? Because his bumper fell off. So you showed him it can happen.
We did get Harold Johnson. Yes, we did. And so anyway, they said, who are we going to put in the car? And my dad had been watching Davey growing up and watching him run ARCA cars and built some engines for him. And he said, this is, for me, it's a pretty easy decision. Davey Allison is going to be a superstar. And they said, okay, well, let's put Davey in the car. And man, what a great team. Robert Yates and Davey Allison, that 28 Texaco Haviland Ford was something special.
Yeah. You were talking about Hamm and Moody, and that's where Tracy's dad worked there in 62, I believe it was, and her grandfather worked there. She mentioned that on there before because he knew Robert as well.
You know, Hamm and Moody was, I think of Roush Yates as kind of a modern day Hamm and Moody. Of course, we don't build the cars and some other things that they did, but in a lot of ways, we power all the Ford cars, and just like John Holman and Ralph Moody did back in that day.
Right. Yep. Buddy Foss says to tell you hello.
Hi, Buddy.
And so I had a questions from, I'm not going to say who it was from because he said not to. All right. So what was the coolest moment in a race for you, and also what was the most embarrassing moment at the race? Okay. Most embarrassing moment at the race, and maybe what was the coolest moment at the race?
Wow. We had so many great things. I mean, probably the most embarrassing, probably one of the more embarrassing moments was when I graduated high school, they gave me this signboard job. And most people probably don't understand what that means. But back in the day, you took a board with your car number on it, and you walked out on pit road, and you held the sign up, and then you walked the car into the garage, into the pit stall. And there was no pit road speed, so they're coming down to Daytona, 140 miles an hour entry, and I mean, they're going as fast as they can to get to the pits.
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, I'm out there on pit road, and once you go out there, everybody's getting a little closer to the grass. So I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. I'm big time NASCAR on pit road. And the Daytona 500, here comes Davey. This was 1991, I believe. 1991, Daytona 500. We sat on the pole. And here he comes down pit road. And I could tell he's not going to stop. There ain't no way he's stopping. So I'm going. And next thing I know, I'm like, all right, I gotta bail out, right? And he hits me and tosses me 5 feet over the wall. And I'm thinking to myself, laying there on the ground, like, college graduate, team owner's son. What am I the most dispensable guy on the whole team or what? It's like, earn your stripes or get out. So that was kind of a little bit of an embarrassing moment, but it made it through that. But a lot of cool moments. I tell you, one of the coolest moments, it was when we won the 1996 Brickyard 400. When we started going there, Phil, you remember, I mean, the stands, 400,000 fans. As far as you could see on both sides, because they have the stands on the inside and outside. And, it was Ernie Irvin and Dale Jarrett, and running 1-2. And Ernie was leading, Dale was second. Dale ends up passing him and win the race. And we go, and they, in victory lane, they lift you up, and then this thing spins around. The podium back then, they don't do that anymore. But I said, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Sure.
I mean, this is the coolest, victory lane.
I still can picture Dale with that brick in his hand up in the air in the doorway. He stood right up and held it up in the air.
And Dale Jarrett was such a class act, man. And he is a big time. Whenever you had a big money race, the Daytona 500, the Brickyard 400, the World 600, Dale Jarrett was money.
Well,
speaking of
we had
money,
Nick in here last week, and he was talking about when you broke down the engines, the difference between a Dale Jarrett engine and an Ernie Irvin.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Ernie had he liked breaking things. Matter of fact, he took a lot of pride in the fact that he never finished a Pocono race on 8 cylinders. And he was proud of that.
I guess he kind of got everything he could out of it.
He did. Ernie was one of the most talented guys I've ever, unbelievable talent.
Yeah. I was asking him about the difference between him and his son, because he races now, and he was talking about how he didn't care. He just was flat out, and he didn't have a lot of sense about him. But he said his son actually kind of thinks when he's in the car and whatever. So, Bernie was saying it. And I was probably over in the gift shop whenever y'all won that race that day, because we had hit the wall. Kyle hit the wall, you remember?
Yeah.
Killed the wall, killed
I
the
do.
car. And so we were out of the race. So we just went over to the gift shop, and I traded my shirt and got in free and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But you remember these things right here?
I do.
Because Dale Jarrett won these one time.
1998, Talladega.
And
October.
Yep, how about that? Phil had these. So we're giving away to whenever we do our spin the wheel.
That was we came really close to winning the million a couple times. We went to Darlington with a really good chance to win it, and somebody broke in front of us, and going into turn, I'm all backwards now. I can't. The turns are
One of the turns.
Yeah, it was turn 3 back then, and we got into the wall, and our day was over. But
What year was that? I'm sorry.
Well, that was probably 96.
Okay,
90,
yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Winston
Right.
Million program, that was really cool. I mean, they did a lot of great promotions. Winston did so much for our sport. I mean, they would take all the teams out every Friday night throughout the season, almost every Friday night. They would take one organization to dinner or somewhere special, and we would go out to Sonoma, and Winston would take us to a winery that we went to every year out there, and just such good times with Winston and the NASCAR people. And
D. Wayne Roberts.
yeah, he was a man. I mean, T. Wayne really did it upright, and it's a special time in our sport.
Yeah. What was the first race you built an engine for?
The first race, I remember the first race that I built an engine that we won, which was really cool, was the 1990 Charlotte fall race. Sorry, 1991 Charlotte fall race.
Okay.
Is the first one that I put together myself.
Charlotte, that's a big one. I mean, that's
Yeah.
cool. Hometown track and all.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell on myself a little bit, but I came to work for my dad. I graduated college in May of 1990. The guys there were like, what are we going to do with this college kid? And by then I'd already home blocks and tore down engines and this and that. But they said, all right, you go work on restrictor plate engines. Because back then nobody worked on Daytona and Talladega like a plate engine. They just came out with those restrictor plates a couple years prior. After Bobby Allison got in the fence there at Talladega, when Davey won his first race in 1987, is when they put smaller carburetors on, and then they started slowing them down. So anyway, my project was to work on plate engines, and me and Scooter Brothers from Comp Cams, I was the first guy I called. My dad gave me a business card, said, call this guy.
Yeah.
I called Scooter up, and we started working on camshafts, and we tested and tested and tested, and everybody was looking over there like, what's this kid doing? We sat on the pole for the 1991 Daytona 500. Jake Elder was our crew chief. Suitcase Jake.
Right.
It was awesome. That was my love of Daytona started. But later in that year, some of the guys had kind of moved on and left, and I got to build that engine. We won Charlotte with Davey in the fall that year. I was living with Jeff Clark. We went back to his house, and we had a unbelievable party. I felt like my whole high school came, celebrated the win, and they didn't know it was that special to me. They just know we won the race, right?
Yes.
And I thought, I've made it. I've won one race. That was the first one that I
cool.
built the whole engine. So it was really cool.
You went to East Mech, right?
I went to East Mech High School here in Charlotte.
Yeah, and I went to Harding on the west side.
Yeah.
But I was about, I guess, 3 years behind you. So when you were living in Wilkesboro, but at some point you moved back to Charlotte, I guess.
Yeah, we lived there for 4 years. And my dad and Junior, they had a great relationship and thought it was going well. And my mom finally said, look, Robert, you can stay here as long as you want. I'm going back to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Because there are no shopping malls here. And,
Right.
and there's nothing up here.
Right,
and
yeah.
I'm going to take my kids. We're going back to Charlotte. Yeah. And he said, you can do what you want. And at that point, it really was a decision time for my dad. And my dad said, well, I love Junior. I love the place, but I need to go back. And from there, he came back to Charlotte, went to work for a guy named Parky Nall, and then ultimately went to work for Dygard. And built engines for Darrell Waltrip, won a lot of races with him and that team at that time.
My dad says he remembers your dad driving or drag racing down, I guess, Independence Boulevard or somewhere out that way.
That's where he got to start.
He's been telling me that a long time.
He had his 57 Chevrolet, and he would pull the engine up. My dad's dad was, my parents were preachers, a Baptist preacher in Charlotte. He's the youngest of 9 kids, him and his twin brother Richard.
Yeah.
And they would get the hoist out in the tree and pull the engine out, change the cam, and go drag racing down in Independence. And the coolest part about that is Buddy Baker went to high school with my dad. He was a year older, and the cops didn't have radios back then, believe it or not. So they get on Independence, get it 4 wide, back it up, like get traffic all backed up, and take off and start running, and they could outrun the cops because the cops' cars were slow and they didn't have any radios.
That's cool.
And so back then, they did that. So my Uncle Richard was working at the drive-in there. It's called Babe and Lloyd's. It's like South 21.
Yeah.
Everybody knows South 21 on Independence.
That's right.
And so my dad came back around to the country and parked the car there at Babe and Lloyd's, and Richard was there, and the cops came and arrested Richard.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I wasn't driving. Well, the car's warm. You know, it's your car. Your driver's. So they had a lot of fun growing up in Charlotte, so much so that they kicked my dad out of the town. Preacher's kid, 16 tickets when he was 16 years old. And he went to live in Mars Hill with his sister. Best thing ever happened to him. He made straight A's and went on to Wilson Tech and learned how to work on heavy equipment, and that's changed his life.
That's cool. That's where my dad was born, in Wilson. But my dad also told me he remembers Buck Baker driving a bus. He remembers getting on the bus with him. So I don't know. Anyway, that's another story, but I don't know. Do you remember this shirt?
I do.
And why we quit wearing these?
I do. So I was so proud. When we started Roush Yates Racing Engines in 2000, at the end of 2003, we started, my dad and Jack said, we want you to run the company. And we did that shirt. That was our first sweatshirt, first logo.
Yeah.
And my dad basically, to make a long story short, he said, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And guys would even wear them backwards because when they saw them, they didn't want my dad to tell them how bad it was. Yeah. And so that's where we started. And today we have this, which is the Perfect Storm.
That's right.
It's really pretty cool story of branding. But this is an R and a Y. So if you look at it close, you'll see the R and the Y for Roush Yates. And the reason why we say it's a perfect storm, because people said there's no way that Jack Roush and Robert Yates will put their engine companies together, much less it last. Right. Because they don't like each other. Yeah. And that's oil and water right there. We'll never make it. And we started in 2004. We're still going.
That's right.
That's going one strong. Of our questions. One of our viewers, Chad Hyder, wanted to know is what was the motivation for both of those to join together? What was the motivation?
Yeah, that's my dad and Jack raced so hard against each other. They would rather beat each other than beat Rick Hendrick, which was good and bad. I mean, they wanted to be the number one Ford guy. They wanted Edsel Ford, Bill Ford to pay attention to them, that they won. My dad was so proud that he won the championship in 1999 with Dale Jarrett before Jack Roush won his championship in 2003 with Matt Kenseth. He couldn't stand it. He was more happy about that than almost anything else. Yeah. And but really what was going on was the industry was changing. I mean, the sport was changing. A lot of technology was coming. A lot of technology from F1 and IndyCar was coming to NASCAR. My dad and I had just we moved from Dwell Street up to here into Mooresville into a 75,000 square foot engine shop, which at the time, nobody in the world had an engine shop like that. My dream growing up was to have a world-class engine shop with engineers and lab coats and great dynamometers. And so we built that. And we had a lot of business before that we were doing Travis Carter's engines and a lot of different engines. And some of that stuff went away. And Jack was looking to move down here, and we had the space. Jack was moving, and it was just the timing was just right. Ford Motor Company, Dan Davis at Ford. I don't know if you remember Dan, but and that whole crew, they said, "Hey, Jack and Robert, you really need to think about this." But we were at Atlanta back when Atlanta was in the fall. It was the third from the last race. It went Atlanta, Rockingham, Homestead. my dad and I finally said, it's time to talk to Jack. This is 2003. So in between practices on Saturday, we went over and my dad tapped Jack on the shoulder. He said, hey, do you have time to talk to Doug and I about your engines? Pretty much. He almost got that reaction. He says, yeah, meet me in my motorhome. So we go out to Jack's motorhome in between practices, and we sit down, and the tension, you could cut it with a knife. I mean, it was man, Jack is he's an awesome guy, but so
Meticulous.
intelligent. You really picked your words and you carefully.
Intimidating.
Yeah, very. And we'd done a project together in 1990. We were working on plate engines. I just graduated college, and we took some engines up to Michigan, and we were going to compare. So we took our engine up there. We ran it on his dyno. He ran his engine. We were swapping parts, and the mission was to go beat Dale Earnhardt because he was winning all the plate races. So we go to Talladega in the fall. We qualified third. Jack's cars qualified way in the back, and we didn't talk much after that for a long time. That was 1990. Fast forward to 2003. So we're sitting there in the motorhome, and my dad said, hey, we just built this world-class engine shop. We heard that you wanted to move your engine operation here to North Carolina. We feel like it's, Ford has agreed they would support us in a bigger way if we did this together. Jack looked at my dad and said, look, I don't like you very much, but I'll do this for one reason, is because I like Doug, and I think he has a bright future.
There you go.
And that's kind of how it went.
Yeah.
And so that was Atlanta. We go to Rockingham the very next week, and Jack said, all right, you're going to fly home with me. We're going to do our deal. And so we went to Rockingham. Matt Kenseth wins the championship, clinches at Rockingham. I get on a plane Sunday night, just me and Jack. Jack's up front flying. I'm in the back. And we fly to Michigan, and together, obviously, he's the pilot. And we get out, we get in his Mustang, and he's going 120 down the interstate, wet roads, get to the airport. Get to the hotel, and he gets ready to drop me off. He said, all right, look, let's get one thing straight. I said, yes, sir. He said, I'm a nail straightener. I said, oh, you met your match, because I know exactly what you mean. I came from nothing. I didn't have anything either. I get it. And we won't waste money. I knew exactly what he meant. The very next morning, he picked me up, went to his shop, and it was a really strange thing because they had just won the championship, which is an incredible feat. They're really, really hard to come by. And that day, I had to work with Tom Gant, his head engine builder, which Tom's a great guy, still lives here locally, and to pick out the guys that were going to come down to work at Roush Yates engine shop in Mooresville. And it was really strange because, like I said, those guys had just won, and I had to. Tom and I handpicked 12 guys that came down, moved to our shop, and we started our operation as soon as the season was over. And that winter, we slept on the couches. You remember?
Oh, yeah.
We worked 7 days a week, hard as we could. Yep. And everybody said, look, here's the deal. We don't have enough engines. Just let Jack run his engines in his cars and Robert run his engines, and then we'll get started, and then we'll work towards a Roush Yates engine. I said, look, this is not the way it's going to work. We're going to have a Roush Yates engine come day one. So we tested all of Jack's ideas, a lot of Jack's ideas, as many as we could. We tested as many as my dad's ideas as we could. And the proudest moment, and one of the top three proudest moments in my whole career, is going to Daytona for the Daytona 500 qualifying day in 2004. We sat on the front row with Greg Biffle on the pole, Elliott Sadler on the outside pole. And you know that picture they take with those two cars? My dad and Jack Roush standing there by their cars with the first outing with a Roush Yates Ford engine.
That's in the break room, right?
Yep.
I think they're the one.
Yep. That's the one picture in the shop that will never come down, because that was one moment. And then we went on to win the Cup championship that year with Kurt Busch, the first year of the playoff system. And it was really a match made in heaven. And my dad is my hero. I just admire, like you said, he is just a cool guy. Everything he did is class. And Jack is just an incredible engineer, businessman, aviator, racer, And for me to learn from both of those guys and to be able to see and absorb all that, I mean, Jack only has to tell you one or two things, and you just have to listen, and he's guiding you in the right way. And like I said, I spent almost every day of my life with my dad. So I'm really, really fortunate.
Yeah.
I just admire the fact that you were the binding force between them. What Jack said, he had faith in you. I just think that's magic. That's great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things you could tell whenever Jack Roush gets around Doug. He sees him like a son.
Yeah.
You know, I can see that.
Yeah, and it really stemmed back to when we went up there in 1990. You know, we had in Dwell Street, we had one Superflow dyno. Mm-hmm. We had a couple Bridgeports and a couple Lays. And when I went to Michigan to test those engines, I walked in that dyno cell, and there was dynos as far as you could see. This room won't even. You couldn't. You'd have dyno hallways, probably 25 test cells, machines going. I said, man, this guy has got it figured out. And I would always admire Jack. But I tell you what, when that year, you know, he would always come down. Everybody's heard. You know, you've seen the TV shows, him on race day and all that, where he would always come down here on Tuesdays and have his Tuesday meeting with his race teams, crew chiefs. And he would run all this stuff to ground and like hold them to task. And Jack was incredible how he had 4 teams and then 5 teams and championships. And in 2005, we put five of his cars in the playoff field of 10. Now, I'm not very proud that we didn't win it that year.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson spoiled our party. We finished second, but we had 5 cars, and he came in my office that year, that winter of that 2005 season, and he banged his fist on the desk and said, we're going to put all 5 cars in the playoff. You understand me? I said, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah. It seems like, I know Biffle, what did he win, 6 races that year?
Yeah.
It was just like, man, it was just like, it was crazy. They were just running really good and kicking butt. And I remember taking apart some of the engines from Roush. So it was kind of like we had to dissect what they had and sort of combine it to some of our stuff. But
so you may or you probably don't remember this because I'm observing and helping. But back then we had about 8 assemblers, you know, David plus 7 other guys, and we would build the engines and line them up, and they were all about 15 horsepower apart. I mean, there's a big spread. Today, they're 1 or 2 horsepower, maybe. Yeah. Right? And so we started working on processes and trying to figure out what the best way to do all this was. And we changed the way we built engines, where the engine builder you would fit your bearings, you would gap your rings, you roll your pistons, you would do everything, right?
Right, yes.
And so that was creating a lot of differences along with the machining stuff. And so we got the manufacturing part right with the cylinder heads and manifolds. And then we said, all right, what's the best way to fit the bearings? And we started doing, we just have one person that does that for every engine now. What are the best way to gap the rings? And his engines always made more power. And I'm not saying that because I'm on your show tonight, but the way he gapped his rings was really special. We said, all right, we need to do every engine like David did his. And it was really cool, right? I mean,
yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that, yeah, because I remember getting phone calls from David George and some different people. But
all the engineers.
So, he's like, so what are you doing? And I said, maybe we should wait and just have a little meeting about this, sometime.
You didn't want to give all your secrets away.
No, because then there was another guy calling me asking me the same thing, and he was working for him. So it was kind of like, all right, I think we should just have a meeting about this. And we did. Yeah. And we had a meeting and we got some of the stuff figured out. And but I was proud to help out all that I could.
Oh, you did awesome, man.
Thank you.
I mean, incredible.
And
the gap
yeah,
I got a question from RD Ford. He wanted to know if you did any work on the Cosworth engine, and if that may have led to anything that transferred into the RF9 engine.
Yeah, we didn't work on the Cosworth engines. I mean, that was kind of another famous Ford effort. It was Holman and Moody here in the States, and Cosworth in England, and those guys did a lot of IndyCar engines and F1 engines, and we worked with them on some projects, but we did not collaborate on anything. But Ford had never done a purpose-built race engine. My dad and his team came out with the C3 head, the Yates head in the early 90s. Yep. Or 1989, 1990. NASCAR made us give it to everybody. And so it became the official Yates Ford head. And then from there, we raced that head, won tons of races with it. A lot of Ford guys did, not just our teams, but, Rusty Wallace did with Penske, and Alan Quickie won a championship, and the Wood Brothers won races with it. And then when we started Roush Yates, we said it's time to upgrade the head, and we raised the roof and did a can of the intake valve, and that was a D3 head.
Yeah.
But the Chevrolet guys were getting mad about getting beat, so they came out with a new engine.
Yeah.
And finally, we started working on a development project about 2007, and to design a whole new block cylinder head. And we collaborated with Ford Motor Company, did that project together, and launched that in 2009, and that was the FR9. So Ford Racing 2009, and that engine, we're still racing together with some modifications, of course.
Yes.
But no, we didn't work that closely with Cosworth, but I have a ton of respect for those guys.
And you're talking about Chevrolet, and I remember whenever we started doing the whole canted valve and thing, and then I had to start cutting piston pockets, and I had to have a different piston vise and all this thing. And I was like, you know what, this is kind of like what Robert Yates, this is like his design right here, and Chevrolet's starting to do the same thing. But I remember working over at Sabco. I was working with Doug Hess back then. It was the machinist, Doug Hess.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a phone call, and I don't know if Robert told me that it was Robert Yates or what. I think it was, I answered the phone, and he wanted to speak to Doug Hess. So then when he got off the phone, he came in there and said that was Robert Yates.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember hearing his voice, and I was like, wow, that was Robert Yates. Very cool, because like I said, my dad had always said about the drag racing, and I knew all of the guys in racing before I got into racing. Gary Flattery's tuned in, so he said who wouldn't like Doug Yates? That's the thing.
That's
and
cool.
He says I learned so much from Doug and Robert. The best job ever. And my wife says she's helped me get rings before, or do rings before. Now, she was helping me, I guess it's been about 3 years ago. I had a little 8-in tractor that I was doing an engine for, and I had it up on the stand, and I had the rod, and I had the cap sitting up on top of the block. So I was like, hey, help me put this piston in or whatever. So she grabs the engine, and there goes the rod cap. Ding, ding, ding.
Whoops.
And I was like, I guess I got to be more specific. I said, that's a very delicate piece there. You don't want to drop that,
Yeah, you got to also be careful how you respond to that too.
Exactly. Yes, you got that right. So she hadn't helped me since. So whatever. That's good. All right, there goes the old cowbell.
More cowbell. That's when we bring in the old, in honor of the beer man, Scott Trevison. Do you have a good, clean Sterling Marlin story you can tell us? I know your dad would have plenty, but
Man, Sterling, wow, my dad loved hanging out with Sterling and his wife Paula. They were a lot of fun. I mean, and Cuckoo's son, I mean, I go way back, right? So Cuckoo Marlin was one of those guys back in the day. And I love following the Twitter because you see a lot of those old guys' names and stuff like that. But really, Sterling, I remember so when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a race car driver, just like most people in the sport. I mean, you're in this because you love it, right? You're not just in it to make a living or whatever. You're in it because you love it. So my dad bought me a Margay go-kart, 5-horsepower Briggs engine, and he, I said, all right, I'm ready to go race this thing. He's like, well, I don't have time for that. I mean, he's working all the time.
Yep.
And so on the way to Darlington, there was a little go-kart track over there to the right-hand side. It's a trailer park now, and there was an asphalt road course on the front of it, and then a dirt track on the back side of it. Still go-karts, different cars, but still go-karts. So anyway, I told my dad, "Sorry, I want to go." He said, "All right, well, I'll drop you off." People won't even believe this. So Friday, they're going to track to qualify. He just drops me off with a can of gas and my go-kart, leaves me there all day. No phones, no nothing, right? I'm running around all day long. And so those guys came back from the racetrack, crew chiefs, drivers, all that. And they're like, well, we want to race. We want to race. And so some of the guys got in and drove. Phil Parsons and Ken Reagan. Ken Reagan is a great go-kart racer.
David's dad.
Yep,
right.
David's dad. And so after that, we went to the dirt track behind it. And it's all right, we're going to line up and have they had go-karts for all the drivers and stuff. And Sterling and Tony Glover and Ken Reagan, all those guys were driving and racing. And I just thought it was so cool. I'd get to race against guys like Sterling Marlin. And, I remember they lapped me, but Ken lapped me, and after he lapped me, I fell in. I drove pretty good
Yeah.
after that. But
Yeah.
I was 13 years old riding around with those guys. So that was that's a really good clean Sterling story.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm sure a lot of stories with Sterling have something to do with Coors Light.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That's what ones we usually get. People are like, well, I can't tell that one. Okay, well, I can't tell that one. I can't tell that one. It's amazing that when you get on that dirt cars or the go-kart tracks and you think you're going fast, but then these guys will just lap you, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, all right. So if people, we're talking about Twitter, and you have your own Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to follow you on there, if they don't know about yours, tell them how they can contact you on there.
Yeah, it's at Yates_Doug. And please follow along. One of the coolest things about Twitter, I'm pulling it up here just to make sure I'm giving you the right info and all. One of the coolest things about Twitter is after we win a race, and this is something that's really turned out well. Yeah, it's at Yates_Doug. And after we win a race, we give away the valve cover off the race winning engine, like the actual valve cover. The driver, the winner, will sign it. I sign it, send it to you, and it's really turned into one of the coolest things. And a piece, Phil, we were talking about memorabilia earlier, right? All the cool things that you have from back in the day. Could you imagine getting a winning valve cover off of Kevin Harvick's 50th career win at Darlington? And our fans love it, and the people that follow us, and I say fans, but just the people that we hang out with and are pull for Ford and pull for Roush Yates and us, and that's something that's turned out to be really, really good and a fun thing that we do.
Especially when you have brand loyalty like that, that's a huge thing for a race fan.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, we, during the pandemic when we couldn't race, the Ford guys said, hey, we need to do something. I mean, okay, we're not racing, but we have all these ambassadors. We have the drivers, we have owners, we have engine builder, we have all this stuff, and let's do some fun things. So there was like 8 weeks of videos we had to produce. Some of them were just like social distancing, and then some of them were, what are you doing with your time? And so we went over, my dad had this motorhome lot with all of his, he had a win picture from every win that he was involved with, and he had most of the trophies there. And I had my motorhome parked there in a car and stuff. So we did a little skit, just hanging out here, by the motorhome, looking at the trophies. And then Jack Roush gave me a car. After my dad passed away in October of 2017, Jack wanted to do something to honor him. So he ran a Robert Yates tribute car at Phoenix with Stenhouse. So it was a 17 car, but it had the Texaco Havoline star on it and Yates on the back and a picture of my dad. And Jack gave me that car. He called me after the race, said, do you want a new car or do you want that car? I said, I want that car. And so it's the only car that I have. So I pulled that car out, took it outside and revved it up, and man, the engine sounded awesome. But just fun things on Twitter. I mean, it's a great way to follow people. I don't do Facebook. My wife said there's too many old girlfriends, although I didn't have that many. But anyway, I do like social media, and I love the interaction from the fans.
For sure. And I remember building an engine for that car originally. I don't know if whenever it got rebuilt, if I ended up doing it or not, but I felt proud of building the engine for it the first time, at least. And I know what you mean. It seems like you used to be like kind of anti-social media kind of stuff, but then you started getting on Twitter, and then now you're on Instagram. And it is good to keep in touch with people, and people can, the new race fans and people like that. Yeah,
it's been so good. I mean, people talk about all the negative things about social media and negative feedback, but man, it's been great for us and great for me personally. I mean, it's the engine builder life. You're most of the time you're just pretty quiet. You're not a very drivers and crew chiefs are the guys that are on TV and on the radio. And if you see an engine guy on TV, it's probably a bad thing. It's probably a bad day. So, I think we try to change that, and I want to be out there for Roush Yates, for Ford Motor Company and all the things they do. And it's been fun. Yep. I like it.
So I remember, go ahead.
Do you have a favorite track? Rachel was wondering.
Man, I love, I have 3 favorite tracks. Talladega is my favorite track. And the reason why is the memories that were created at Talladega. One, Davey Allison winning his first race there in 1987. in the 28 Texaco car. You remember the guys, Joey Knuckles and all the guys on the hood coming to Victory Lane.
That's right.
My dad won his first race there as a car owner in 1989, and we won. We won a lot of races there with Davey and Del Jarrett. We won the Winston Million in '98. Until recently, we'd won 7 races in a row in the fall. So in the past year or so, it's our winningest track. But it was also my dad's last win there in October 2nd of 2005. Interestingly enough, because he passed away October 2nd of 2017. That was his last win. I'll never forget that day. It was a beautiful day, beautiful fall day. Won the race, and we had been struggling. Dale Jarrett, UPS car. Eddie DeHunt was our sponsor. We weren't the best car. Dale was kind of laying back that day, but we ended up winning the race. And my dad and I were walking arm in arm down pit road. Beautiful day, and he was so happy. And so that makes it really special. And I love going there and hanging out with the fans. And I do the infield thing every once in a while, but that's not really why I like it. I like it because the memories of being there and the Allison family and all that. And then I love the Daytona 500. I mean, the Daytona is a special track. I mean, we've won there 8 times and been fortunate to be able to do that as an engine builder. And so that's cool. And then I love going to Michigan. Michigan in the summer, you roll in there late afternoon, doesn't get dark about 10 o'clock. And, man, the night before you check in the garage, man, I just think about all the great memories and times we had there racing with Davey and Dale Jarrett and the races we won with Jack Roush and most recently Kevin Harvick. And I love those 3 tracks. I mean, those 3 tracks, I love going there. And there's not many I don't like, but those are 3 of my favorite: Talladega, Daytona, and Michigan.
I find that a little ironic because that's really pushing an engine to the edge. So with that rationale, would Pocono be your least favorite?
I mean, I like Pocono when you win,
From an engine's point of view,
but it's a lot.
Your engine's in there. Isn't that one of the most stressful tracks?
Pocono is a really hard track when we shifted there. So we haven't been shifting lately, but man, when we shifted there, we would break everything. We would break timing chains. We would break valve springs. We would break valves. We rock our arms. Yeah. That place is torture for an engine builder. And, but we won some good races there. We won on fuel mileage with Dale Jarrett. Dale's first win with Roush Yates Racing, the 28 car, and Larry McReynolds. I'll never forget that. I'll tell you a story. Danny Lawrence loves to tell a story because Danny and I are great friends. We were so close on gas, and we're pretty superstitious, right? I mean, we pull in parking lots. We don't back in.
No number 13 in the building.
No 13s at all. There's no room 13. There's no parking space 13. I don't walk through handicap spots. I don't do any of that stuff. So anyway, we were so close on fuel that I got a can of ether and I was spraying it up in the air, just hoping that the engine would sniff some of it just so we could make it a little bit further. But we did some crazy things and had so much fun. I mean, when we would sit on the pole like at Daytona, in qualifying, back then, single car qualifying, if we were fastest, we'd go around the garage and turn all the space heaters on, just try to heat up the ambient air. We were on the pole one time at Richmond, and there was still cars to go. And my dad said, "Get in a van, ride around the infield." Infield used to be dirt. He said, "Go ride around the infield and stir up the dirt." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Go stir up the dirt." So I'm riding around in a van, like trying to get dirt flying up on the racetrack. I mean, we had so much fun.
So you're talking about Richmond. How did you like that track? Was you there in 2014? Whenever we were talking about the fence climber?
The craziest thing I've ever seen. I was not there, and that's probably good because I got a better view to watch this crazy guy climbed up on the fence.
Yes.
I mean, I love it.
Yes.
Race fan.
Yes.
I think he had his shirt off.
Yes, he
did. This guy's crazy.
Yeah,
this guy's
crazy.
A true race fan.
We don't know who he is.
What's up, Dickie?
Yeah, it's Dickie Dennis. He's one of our constant.
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Yes.
Oh, my guy.
Yeah.
There he is. What's up, Dickie?
Good evening, y'all.
Yates smile.
Man, this is an honor. What were you thinking?
Thank you, Mr. Yates.
He doesn't have an answer for that.
What were you thinking? I just got to know.
There was a guy that spilled the beer on the back of a Kevin Harvick shirt.
Yep.
And there was going to be a rumble. I told him the safest place for him to be was if I was sitting on that catch fence. He told me I didn't have the balls. True story.
So he made it happen.
So there's some beer involved.
But I have a question. A question, Mr. Yates.
Yes, sir.
Is what I did really so bad?
No, it's actually you're like. Is this on? Yeah, we're recording.
Yeah.
That's hero material, though. I mean, really,
You're awesome, bro.
man.
You're awesome, man. Keep on doing.
My wife and I were watching it, and we're like, "This guy's crazy. This is the coolest thing I've ever
Yes.
seen."
So it was so funny because he throws his arms up in the air, but it looks like he's salute. What was that for, Dickie? Tell him about that. Why you threw your arms up in the air?
I had left my phone in the bleachers. I was trying to make a
Selfie with the 4-car.
selfie, like with Harvick getting ready to take another forward. Kevin and Brad were getting ready to be real hard into turn 4.
You were getting ready to have a bunch of Instagram followers. I can tell you that.
Well, you know,
Yes.
I would rather be considered a fan than support fans in the bleachers than television time.
Hey, we're all
Let's
fans.
put fans back in the bleachers, Mr. Yates.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you, in fact, my first race that I went to, my mom took me to qualifying at North Wilkesboro when I was just a little kid. We were living in North Wilkesboro, and my dad was down there, working on the car, and she dragged me in there. She said, "All right, let's go sit in the bleachers." Concrete bleachers, sat on the very first row, and what I remember is beer cans and chicken bones.
Yeah.
They call it chicken bone
Chicken Bone Alley.
Chicken Bone Alley for a reason, because it is true. Let me tell you, firsthand, as a 5-year-old kid, I'll never forget that, my first race. And but no, man, good job. And you're famous, buddy. And I'm talking to a famous guy.
It was awesome talking to you too, sir, man.
You too.
I love this show, man. All my buds are watching the show tonight, and
Awesome.
thanks for including me with your night.
Heck yeah, thank you.
All right, Dickie, we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Keep pulling for those forwards, Dickie.
All right, later, y'all.
That's right. He's got a page on Facebook called Fear the 4 page. So, yes, he's a big time race fan there. Ford,
Awesome.
And for Ford as well. And so I was going to ask you a couple of things. Oh, actually, Brad doubted I was going to get your hat signed, but nobody has a Sharpie. So, I mean, sorry about that. Maybe I can get it next time I see Doug.
I think we got that taken care of. Buddy.
Yeah, it's all good. He just sent me a text and said, "Don't forget the hat. I can see it."
Yep.
The man sitting with you, LOL.
We got you covered.
He's been checking on me it's been ever since I left. Like, he had sent it to me right after, and I was like, "Well, I don't work there anymore, but I'm gonna try to get down there soon." And it was a year and a half.
I had to come up here.
That's right. Yeah. I said, well, I did see him one time, but he was behind me in his pickup. I stopped by the shop to see you, but everybody was just like, it was one of those deals, like you said, y'all had to turn around and go back out, and everybody was so busy. I just didn't even bother. I did want to ask one thing about.
Wait a minute. You don't want to bother? You don't want to come in and get put to work?
Well, I mean, I'm always willing to do some work, but well, first thing that Brian Duke come out and check my temperature.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
And so I was like, all right, this is. I get that and all, but I was like, I don't have a mask, and I know I don't want to do any of that, so I just left.
All right, we got him taken care of.
I said I'll come back some other time. But I remember going to the reunion for Robert Yates over there in Bobby Benton's shop there, and whenever he started, all right, so somebody asked Doug, your dad to tell a story about Doug, because all he kept talking about was Davey and Davey this, Davey that. And I thought it was one of the funniest things ever was whenever he started talking about you, but then he just started right back on to Davey. It was like, and you're like, Dad, what about me?
I tell you, he was Bobby and Robbie Benton have been great friends to our family. I mean, they're such awesome people. I mean, Bobby was our gas man back on Dwell Street there with the early days. I'm sure we didn't pay him anything, and then along comes Robbie to help him. And, it's a pickup crew. I mean, we drove to every track. We would drive to Michigan. We'd drive to Pocono. We'd drive to Watkins Glen. I mean, we'd fly to Sears Point. I mean, we did so many things together, that group of people with Danny Dickerson, Bobby Benton, Daryl Ferguson, Jeff Clark, Brian Clark. I mean, all those guys, I mean, we're like brothers. You know, I mean, we just spent time together. We go to Daytona Beach, not even have a hotel room, and Norman Kushmishu would put us up in his glorious sister's house upstairs, and there are like 6 of us in this, just wherever you could pull out a blanket or whatever, and you're sleeping and you're getting it. But they are so good to us. But when my dad got sick and kind of knew that the end was near, he'd just been nominated, or just been introduced into the Hall of Fame. Mike Helton got up and called his name out there, the Hall of Fame. Bobby and Robbie said, I want to do something special, and we'll have a Robert Yates Racing reunion at our shop. And so I went by and picked him up, and man, he was excited about going, but he was really sick.
Sure. Yeah.
And we got up there, and man, that place was just packed, and all kinds of people in there, and Vernon Hubbard.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even name them all. It was just all these people that had been part of that family, and that what we were doing for so long and supported us, and got up on stage. Larry McReynolds was emceeing it. He had a desk up there, and Danielle was up there helping, and I got a bunch of people up there talking, but you know, got pictures with everybody, and said, Dad, are you at the end? I said, you ready to go? He said, I don't want to go, but I don't feel good. And he went out. I mean, we didn't leave till 11:30 or something that night.
I know. I was one of the last ones there too.
But it was such a special time. I mean, you know, like I said, racing was so different back there in some ways, and the reason was it was never a business. It was just we were racing to win the next race.
Right.
We didn't even have time clocks on the wall. We took the clocks off the wall because we didn't leave until we felt like we were ready to go win.
Yeah, and you couldn't back into your spot.
Yeah, we didn't know. I mean, my dad had a saying. It's like, look, if you get a speeding ticket on the way to work, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
You get one on the way home, you're on your own.
Yeah.
But it was such a special deal because it was all about the next race. It was all about winning the next race, taking care of your teammate. My dad drove the truck, jacked the car, built the engine, built the car. And when Larry McReynolds came on board, man, it was game on.
Sure.
I mean, we went from fast to consistently fast, and won 5 races in 91, 5 in 92, including the Daytona 500, and coulda, shoulda, woulda won the championship in 92. But that was really where it put us on the map. And then when Todd Parrott and Dale Jarrett joined forces in 1996, man, it was magic. I mean, we won the Daytona 500. Coca-Cola 600, Brickyard 400. And we're building a championship team. And Todd was really special like that. I mean, Todd came up just like I did. You know, his dad, Buddy Parrott, and my dad, you know, Buddy was a crew chief, and my dad was an engine builder.
Yeah.
And when Todd and I got together, we took that to the next level, including with my dad's guidance and support, and with Dale Jarrett driving. Man, that was such a special time for us.
Remember how I used to always say Buddy Parrott he was the luckiest crew chief. Like, he had the Parrott luck. So
Buddy was the most enthusiastic guy I've ever met. I mean, so my dad and Buddy with Dygaard, they were someplace, I think it was Nashville, and they were 4 laps down. Listen to this, Phil. Darrell Waltrip driving 4 laps down. Buddy said, we're going to win this race. My dad said, there ain't no way. Came back and won it. Made up 4 laps. And that was just, Buddy was a great cheerleader, great motivator, great tire changer. He knew the tires because he worked for Goodyear Tire and Rubber. Yeah. And he knew his stuff. But, man, think about it. When Buddy Parrott went to Penske years later, right, and got teamed up with Rusty Wallace, they knocked it out of the park.
No looking back then. He lives right up here, actually.
We would pit next to him. We had an awesome pit crew. When Jeff Clark started jacking our car, and Jeff, we went to high school together, met in 10th grade. He graduated from UNC Wilmington. I graduated from state. He said, I want to work at this race shop. I said, Jeff, your dad owns an insurance business. It's going to be your business. He said, I want to race, man. I want to compete. Like, Jeff. Yeah. And so finally, he said, I want to be a jack man. Well, my dad was a jack man. And he said, well, if you can beat me, you can have my job. So finally, Jeff will tell you this. I'm sure you've heard the story, but my dad put Speedy Dry down on the concrete. Jeff went around the car. You know this. You've heard the story many times. Fell, kept digging, got up the car. Jack Carr, he said, look, I know you're fast. I just want to see if you're tough.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, you got the job.
Yeah.
But we had a great pit crew. I carried tires and changed tires, stuff like that, but I wasn't that good. Those guys got really good. And we were racing when Buddy was with Penske and Rusty, and we had our cars, and I'm thinking with Davey and Ernie. Buddy, we were at Martinsville one time, and we beat him out of the pits, and Buddy was at the front of the car. He yanked our spoiler back, trying to pull the car back.
Oh, my gosh.
Just so we wouldn't beat him out of the pits. I mean, he was so full of life and energy and swagger.
Yeah.
I've never met a guy that had so much confidence, and he was a badass.
And now
He is a badass.
Town on his motorcycle like Fonzie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. But he's really cool. And then Todd and Brad and what a great racing family.
I still see Brad every once in a while, and I see him on social media. But I was pumping gas one day, and then I heard Hamm, and I looked over, and it was Brad. So he just lives right down here on Bell Farm Road, pretty much hanging out with his dad here for a while. And Kimberly Cram's tuned in, Dawson Cram's mother, and she was saying thanks for the great stories. And she also mentioned Buddy Baker is one of my favorite people I've ever met in this sport, and had a chance to work with in television. And his stories always made me ugly laugh.
I told you earlier that my dad and Buddy went to high school together and raced here in Charlotte together, drag race, and they would do a bootleg turn like you would do. You were going, you make a 90-degree turn, and Buddy always bragged on my dad's was pretty good. Tried to scare each other, I'm sure. But later, when we were flying around, we'd all be hanging out in the airport together, in between layovers or whatever. And Buddy he owned his own team at the time and did some TV stuff. And he was the funnest guy, man. His laugh.
Sure. Yeah.
He was just a good time to be around, and a gentle giant. I love that picture of him and that 200 mile an hour sign. That's when I think of Buddy Baker, I think of speed.
Right.
I mean, that cat was fast.
Last
and
time
he
I
wasn't
saw
scared.
him, I was at the Lowe's down in Mooresville, and I was standing there looking at light bulbs or something, and he come up behind me, and I just kind of turned around, and he was a pretty tall guy.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, hey, buddy," and it's been years ago, of course, because he passed away.
Yeah.
A while back. So, did you have anything over there, Phil?
Let me see. What lesson have you learned from your dad that you could give to young people trying to make it in the sport today?
Yeah, just, so many things I learned from my dad, and most of them I didn't understand as a young kid. It was work ethic. Why do we need to work so hard? And even my kids sometimes say, well, this guy's going to burn himself out, or, studying. When you're young, go for what you want. If you want to, if you see something, a career path, put everything you can into it. Don't worry about time. And now that's me saying, I know a lot of people may disagree with that, but if you want some, go get it. And you'll never regret that. Some of my fondest memories are all those hours we spent on the road with all those guys we were talking about, working in the shop, making that extra horsepower, calling my dad on the way home, saying, man, we made 5 more horsepower. But the other thing he taught me was just, he could always, he just had an incredible way of just being humble. I mean, I was a pretty high strung kid, and if I saw something, I wanted it. I did everything I can to get it. He had a way of just seeing things differently and standing back and seeing the bigger picture, and being nice to everybody. I think that most people say Robert Yates was a really kind, gentle, and he was more of a giver than a taker. And he would always say, under promise and over deliver. Under promise and over deliver was kind of one of his mottos. But a lot of the way he grew up, I understand more today than I did then, because his dad was a Baptist preacher. And if you're a Christian and you read the Bible and you see some of the verses, and treat others like you want to be treated yourself, and when somebody's if you're mad at you, pray for them and do, and he was kind of like that guy, which is so hard to be that guy. But boy, he really was. And I'm sure when he was younger, my age, he was probably not exactly like that, but as I knew him, and all the time we spent together, he was such a incredible leader, such an incredible example for people, and just the way he treated people was incredible.
Yeah. I know the first time, I mean, I got to talk to him every once in a while when he was walking down the hall, and I'd be like, all right, he's by himself. I'm going to go out there and talk to him, and I wasn't too forceful. I just tell him, hey, my dad grew up right there on Nash Street. I mean, in Wilson, he was born there, and he's like, oh, really? Yeah. So we start talking about his going to technical college there and all this kind of stuff. And then how I rode my bicycle by, and he would say, oh, did you hear the engines running? A die guard shop and all.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I'd be like, yeah, I did. I sure did. That was good stuff. But Richard's another one that's just a great guy. I mean,
yeah, I have twin girls, Olivia and Sophia, and one of them is a lot like me, and one of them's more like my wife, Whitney. But it reminds me a lot, and their personalities are so different. One is more competitive, athletic,
yes,
more in engineering, racing. The other one is more theater, and I kind of think of my dad and Richard, his twin brother, that way, and they really complemented each other very well. And when my dad decided to buy the race team, he asked Richard, hey, would you come and run the business side? So Richard ran the business, and my dad worked on the team and did the team side of things, and it allowed him to be able to focus on what he did. But Richard's the greatest guy. Before I could even drive, every Saturday morning, Richard would pick me up. We'd go by Bojangles or Hardee's and get a steak biscuit, and we would go to Die Guard, and we would clean that shop from top to bottom every single Saturday. I'm talking the engine shop, the car shop, and not just blow things off. I mean, mop, pull benches out, clean it perfect. And when they came back in from the race on Sunday or Monday, everything was spotless. But Richard and I spent a lot of time together, and he would drive. If the speed limit was 55, he's going to go 54. Or 35, he's going to go 34. My dad would be,
40.
75, 85. They were so opposite. 16 speeding tickets, and Richard was the calm, collected guy. But Richard's awesome. He's been with us. He still works with us some. He's been taking care of his wife. They live in Mint Hill and just got a new grandbaby. So
very nice.
I love my Uncle Richard. And my dad's family, they had 9 kids. And just recently, several of his sisters have passed away, and his sister, my Aunt Doris, passed away a couple months ago. And earlier this year, the NCMA had an event for my dad, and she was there at that event.
Nice.
That I spoke on his behalf there at that event. But what a great family!
Yeah, I was down at Myrtle Beach one time, and I saw him, and we followed him over to his condo down there and went and hung out with him a little bit. I still didn't meet his wife though.
Yeah, she's pretty shy.
So we got one question. Rachel wanted to know, you have a Bible service at your shop?
Yeah, we do. We have a Bible service every other Wednesday. Nick Terry from MRO comes to our shop, and we've been doing it virtually now, but we have the longest running Bible study in NASCAR.
Wow.
So Max Helton, who started, one of the founders of MRO, started the study back downtown at Dwell Street. And we keep that going today with Nick Terry and MRO. And MRO that's a community center, the traveling community center. They have chapel there every Sunday. Right after the drivers' meeting, they'll have the MRO chapel service. And then the drivers, the families come, and people, the pit crew guys will come. And I like to go to that. I missed that from this year, and they'll have that. Then, like I said, we have the Bible study, and that's been a big part of my family because we can't go to the church, that much.
Sure.
When you travel 38 weekends of the year. So
right.
It's been great.
They do a wonderful job, MRO does, and hopefully next week we'll have Lake and Risa Speed on here.
Yeah.
They were one of the original people that helped bring MRO on board. So.
Yeah, Lake Speed, great guy. He filled in he drove for us after Davey passed away, got killed in his helicopter crash. And Lake ran Michigan for us, qualified second at Michigan. We qualified fourth at Watkins Glen. Lake was getting ready to run Darlington, which he won Darlington in his car. And we're getting ready to run Darlington, and we signed Ernie Irvin. Finally to drive the 28 car.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the toughest things for my dad was, we're looking for a full-time replacement for Davey. Got an opportunity to sign one of the baddest drivers in the whole sport, Ernie Irvin. He was driving the 4-car. And it kind of all went down at Bristol, the night race, and then we got the deal signed. And he said, I want to start at Darlington. And my dad said, oh, man. And my dad would always do this when he got nervous. Mm-hmm. And he had to tell Lake he couldn't run Darlington. And we put Ernie in the car, and it was magic.
Sure.
I mean, we went there, and Ernie was so tough. He radioed in, or he's coming down the front stretch, and he ran Earnhardt down to the guardrail. He said, you boys watching this? And he said, oh, man,
yeah,
this cat is real. And we won the third race out at Martinsville. Third race, he was in the car. We won Martinsville. He gets out, and he has a Davey Allison T-shirt on to tribute and for Davey. And Davey, that was really special. And then we went to Charlotte later that year, fall of 1993, and led all but 6 laps, lapped everybody but Mark Martin for second, and really had a great time with Ernie.
Yeah. I remember being at Charlotte and sitting on the backstretch, and actually I was sitting in turn 4 the last day race whenever Davey was pretty much dominated that race. And then the next year was the one hot night whenever he got in the wreck with Kyle.
Yep.
And that was why I was sitting on the backstretch that night, the very top row.
Well, that Winston that we won in 1991, the last day Winston All-Star race, I'll never forget. I mean, we were so fast. Unbelievable. We win the race, and Bill France comes down, Bill Jr. comes down and looks at my dad. He said, boy, he said, don't stink up my show.
Yeah.
And he did this.
Yes, he was checked out.
So he cut the very next week for the 600, they cut our spoiler half an inch and raised our valence.
So that's what that meant.
He said, boy, don't stink up my show.
Yes.
And we went on and we won the 600 anyway. And then the very next year at one hot night was what an incredible race. And you asked me earlier, one of the coolest moments. I'll tell you, one of the coolest, but also surreal and almost scary moments for me was when Davey won that race, the All-Star race, 1992. We go in the last lap, we're running third, come out, and we're down on pit road. I was on the pit crew, and we can kind of see the backstretch, but we couldn't see everything going on. We come out, and we're passing Kyle coming down the. Was that your engine in Kyle's car?
No, I wasn't working there then. I was just a fan. I was a fan. Yes.
We passed Kyle coming down.
That's a good thing, right?
And then win the race. It's like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. 2 years in a row. The night race at Charlotte, that first night race there, Humpy put those lights up.
Yes.
People said there ain't no way you can run at night here.
Yeah.
We tested there, and when we went out on the starting line, that place was so full. I mean, it was electric. People were going crazy.
Yeah.
The fans. I mean, it just I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And we won the race. It's like, this is awesome. And then Kyle, hooks Davey and hits the wall, and they got to cut him out of the car. And so Davey's going to the hospital in the helicopter, and Humpy and Brute and the guys are trying to take the car to Victory Lane.
All right.
And my dad says, there ain't no way you're taking my car to Victory Lane. He said, Robert, your car is going to Victory Lane. We're going to have a winner. He said, we're going to have a picture. He said, you're not going past me. If my driver's not here, we win together. We go to Victory Lane together.
Yeah.
And Davey's on his way to the hospital. We're not celebrating this victory.
Wow.
And it was kind of a mess there for a minute.
I was there in Victory Lane.
Yeah.
It took a
You
long time.
remember that?
And then they brought back that flatbed in and kind of backed it in, and we took a quick picture. And I got a picture with your dad with his hand on his face going like this. He couldn't believe it, and then they took the car away.
Yeah, he said, no way. He said, do not put my car in Victory Lane. And they ultimately did.
Well, they backed it in they opened that area up. They didn't drop it. They just kind of backed it in on the flatbed with the front end there, and they took a team picture, and then they backed it out.
Yeah, and then there's like, all right, you got to pull the engine out and tear it down. So me and Ryan Pemberton and Raymond Fox and Big E and Norman and all the guys, we got the engine out of the car and tore it down there and inspected it that night. But that was one of the toughest things. But Davey Allison was the single toughest guy I've ever been around. Yeah. Unbelievable. It broke his ribs at Bristol, 1992. Won the next race at Wilkesboro. Jimmy Hensley, practiced the car. He wasn't getting out of that car.
I remember it was Watkins Glen. He took his glasses off there, and his eyes were all bloodshot from Pocono, Iraq.
Talladega Media Center.
He looked terrible.
My dad went to, so we're Pocono, we were flying, and and got in the back. I don't know, pit stop or whatever, but we got in the back. We were coming back past everybody. I mean, we were going to clearly hands down win this thing, and him and Daryl got into it on the backstretch and short, long pine straightaway, and Daryl got into him, and he got in that guardrail and flipped and flipped and flipped. And so we all got the car loaded up, all that stuff, and left. And my dad stayed and went to the hospital. And I believe his mom, Judy, was there, and she said, "You don't really want to see this?" And he said, "I want to see him." I said, "All right, well, come on in." He said that his head was so swollen. It was like his hair had just like shifted back on his head. And he said it was just unbelievable. And the very next week, we go to Talladega, and he said, "I'm driving."
Wow.
He said, "Well, we need a relief driver." So Bobby Hillen filled in for him, and Bobby went out and practiced car a little bit. Davey went to the media center, and he had those Oakley or Cardinals or whatever he had on. He lifted those glasses up, and there was no whites in his eyes.
Yeah.
Bloodshot red.
Bloodshot. So we start that race. Davey starts the race, and you won't even believe this. Starts the race, and to change drivers, I mean, you might lose a lap, not sure. So it starts raining. Caution comes out. Comes down pit road. Bobby Hillen gets in the car. Bob gets in the car. Quits raining. I mean, there wasn't a cloud in the sky.
Wow.
I mean, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And now, my memory is a little, it's a while ago, but that got him in the car. And so Davey was going to go up and spot. Bobby is, he goes to the back because we changed drivers, and we restart the race, and we weren't going anywhere. I mean, we were kind of just medium. We weren't really going anywhere. And Davey gets up top. All right, follow this car, follow that car, inside, outside, drives the car all the way up to the front of the pack, ends up finishing the race third. I mean, it's just those kind of things. I mean, it's just that team, that time for me in my life, and everybody has them, and I hope they have them today. The crew guys that are living their dreams on these cars that are running around winning races, and the guys that are on Chase Elliott's car. Alan Gustafson, good friend of mine. Congrats to him and Chase. And I mean, it's their time, my time's different than it was then. But my time in the sport with my dad and that team, the 28 and 88 cars, man, that was the best of times for me, and something I will never, ever forget.
And that goes back to you saying follow your dreams, because if you don't follow your dreams, then you're going to someday look back and you're going to be like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that?
Yeah, I mean, just go for it, and don't, if things, go for it, because you don't get that opportunity.
And it's not easy. It's none of it's easy as a Jersey Cape yacht. No. But
on the lake.
Truthfully, I know
right,
young drivers that are working on their own trucks and teams now, and they look at their parents and they say, I don't like any of this, because it's not easy. But that's what it takes to follow your dream.
I work 7 days a week. I mean, all I thought about was winning that race. I mean, I couldn't wait. We didn't load, like I said, before we got ready for the Daytona 500, we took the clocks off the wall. We didn't care about that stuff. All we cared about was that race. And that was everything. And that's a great feeling, because if you're spending your days, 8 to 5, and what am I going to do now? And, I mean, that's for some people. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for my dad. It wasn't for the guys that are on our team. And it was not for the guys that are winning today. And so enjoy the moment. It's hard. Like you said, Phil, I mean, these things, we're exhausted. And, but looking back at it now, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And, I love Roush Yates. I love the people. I love the things we're doing. I love the races. We won. We had an awesome year. I mean, we won 33 NASCAR races, 18 Cup, 15 Xfinity. We won the Xfinity Championship, and all that was awesome. And I'm so proud of it. And everybody at the shop, if you're in this, you need to be in it, because you love being in it, and you get satisfaction out of, I fit the bearings for that car, or I put that engine together, or I tore that engine down, or I got to machine that part.
Exactly.
And that's the cool thing about racing. It was always about the next week. And, a lot of jobs, you're not sure, you don't see your product pay off. In this business, you work all week long, you get a report card every Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah, and with that, as soon as that checkered flag falls, you're looking right at next week.
My dad he liked to drive the truck, and we would drive home. I'd rode in the big rig with him a couple times, and it was funny listening to the guys on the CB and Breaker 19 and all that stuff. And if you did bad, boy, they were on you, like really on you. But he liked to drive home on Sunday night because Sunday night's when you get your plan for Monday. You don't plan on Monday morning. You plan on Monday, Sunday night after the race. And you think about all the things you did right, the things you could have done better, the things you did wrong.
Yep.
And that's the cool part about racing is it's always that next race and next challenge. But that's when you got your thoughts together.
I know you're always like the first one in there Monday morning walking through the shop, you know, when everybody else comes in. No matter if we won the race, you're even more motivated. If we had an issue, then you're even more motivated to go to the next week.
Yeah, I mean, if you win, you want to get some more, and if you don't, you need to think about what you did wrong and what. But it's the competition. I mean, that's the fun part
when
about.
When you win, you beat 39 other teams, not just one team.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you've assembled the greatest group of guys in the business, in the world. I mean, you're a world-renowned engine shop.
Yes.
I mean, was it the top? Is it top 10 in the world? I can't remember what it was we were called, but I mean, I say it's more like top 2 in the world. I mean, I don't know who would be first though, but you don't want to say we're first because then somebody else is going to be like, wait a minute. But you know what I'm saying?
No, thank you. I mean, you're right. I mean, just to be amongst the best is an honor, but it's all about the people. Yeah. I mean, it's all about the people. We have so many great guys and girls, and we always said it doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floors or answering the phone, going out to lunch. You know, you got to have this uniform on. You want to make sure that you're wearing it with pride. Yep. You're representing us well, and that, you know, my dad would always say, look, if your mom came in here and went in that bathroom, what would she say? Yeah. Right. And that's how we did it. You don't want to have, you know, bad stuff laying around. You don't want to make sure the place looks good. You want to make sure that people you hang out with are representing you well, and you're representing them well, and it's fun.
That's right.
we have a good time, and this year was challenging, man. Running went midweek races sounds fun, and it was fun, but and the double headers were hard for us too because, you know, if you had to change engines and or if you had to change valve springs, and so we learned a lot of things, but you know, every year is a challenge. And when COVID hit, we said, all right, look, we're gonna attack this thing. It's our job to use this time to get better. We're gonna win. We're gonna put it on them. Yeah. And that's the way we approached it, was not pull back. I mean, keep pushing ahead. Yeah. And we're gonna have less time. We're gonna have, you know, tighter schedules. We're gonna and we really used it to get better. And terrible thing for the world what we're going through. And but we try to attack it with a positive attitude.
Yep. I remember saying that many times on my show, that I said, I guarantee you I know what they're doing over at Roush Yates. They're using this time to get even better because it's the perfect opportunity right here. And that's the way Doug is. He sees opportunity and goes for it.
Well, in the wintertime, you have, you know, you're kind of getting regrouped and everything. Yeah. But at that time, we already had a bunch of engines built.
Yes.
So, all right, let's go work on development.
That's right. I knew it. That's funny you say that. That's great, man.
Well, my dad taught me one thing. He always said, you win with advantages.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty simple. Everybody says it, but think about it. You don't win just for showing up. You win because you worked hard at it, and Leonard Wood always says, man, if that guy sits and climbs through that window, you got to believe in that guy. He's got to be bad. He's got to be badass. And I tell you what, Kevin Harvick is that.
Yep.
Sure.
That guy, he is top notch, and he's incredible. We have a lot of good ones. Brad Keselowski's incredible driver. Joey Logano. Yeah. Blaney's really coming on strong. I mean, we're really fortunate.
For sure, man. And a couple more things I want to point out that before I forget, because it's getting late. I've held you here.
we can talk racing all night.
Oh, this is the best.
Man,
it's hard to do it in an hour.
It is, man. I could see here.
That's what's so nice is people can always come back and watch this. It doesn't matter. You know?
That's right. Yeah. And we could always have you back, hopefully.
Yeah.
But all right. So the first time I met you, I remember meeting you at Vegas, and I was with Big Country. I don't know if Little Country was with us. Bill Miller.
Oh yeah.
And you were in the casino there, you and Whitney. So I walked over and I was like, Yeah, I know that's Doug Yates because I knew you before I got into racing, of course. And but he was, I don't know, he introduced me to you or whatever. So then years later, I come in for the actual interview, which 10 years later, I go, well, maybe it was, let's see, that would have been around 97, 98. So it would have been 5 years later. So,
Right.
And so I ended up coming in for the interview. And then you ended up calling me, you called me and said, hey, how you doing? So you want to come work for us? And is that figure we talked about okay? And I said, yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I was just so excited. That was just an exciting time. And it's the best decision, the best move I'd ever made.
Oh,
was
man,
to come work there.
That's awesome. I mean, we did so many fun things together.
Yes.
And won a lot of races, of course. And I'm very proud of you. I mean, this is impressive,
Thank
man.
you.
I don't know how to work that.
Yeah.
Don't put me behind that keyboard because that would be dangerous for sure. Or, Whitney does all the electronics in our house.
Oh,
she is
okay.
really, really smart. And thank goodness she turns the TV on. There's so many remote controls and Netflix and all the things today. And then my daughters, I got a note from Olivia and Sophia they're listening. And they're
very nice.
Yeah, so they're
Hey, y'all.
they're awesome. They go to a lot of races with me. I mean, people see us together walking down pit road like Whitney and I used to do back in the day. And my daughters, they love racing, and it's a special time. We get to hang out. It's funny because, they got there for a while. They didn't want to go together. Like they wanted, all right, I'll go this week and you can go that week.
Yeah.
And that way it'll be kind of special for, father-daughter time. And so Olivia is a big fan of Ricky Stenhouse and Ryan Blaney. That's her, kind of driver. I think she has a crush on him, but
right, yeah.
But she's they're 13, going to be 14 in January. But so Sophia and I were at Michigan, and outside the track there, not far from there, is a little kind of like a steakhouse kind of place. And I'm sure you guys have been there. I don't know the name of it, but it's a little, steak and barbecue, stuff like that. So Sophia and Jeff and I were in there, and here comes Ryan Blaney and Ricky Stenhouse. And so we got Sophia to take a picture between the two of them, sent it to Olivia. Man, she was so mad.
Oh, yeah.
She was so mad. But,
are they identical or?
No, they're fraternal.
You could use the photo if it's identical. Say it's you.
Right.
No, but Olivia's a lot like me and my dad growing up, and she likes that stuff. And Sophia looks just like her mom. But it's cool. I mean, NASCAR is a family sport, and it's what you make it. But to be able to spend time with them and carry that on, I mean, they're 14, and my son's really, Christian's into it a little bit, but the girls are more into it.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing them with their pictures with the drivers and stuff like that.
Do you think any of your kids will try to carry on with what you're doing, or is it just?
If they want to, Phil, you know what I mean? It's like, I think maybe that's about 10 years away. So I don't know how many more of these radio shows can we do between now and them graduating college. You know what I mean? But
for sure.
I hope to be part of the sport. I mean, it's fun right now what we're doing, and with Roush Yates, and hopefully keep that going and keep winning races for Ford, and we'll see what happens down the road. But no pressure on them for sure. Everybody gets one shot at this thing, and hopefully. I have a question for you.
Yes.
So all the time we worked together and spent together, like, what's your favorite race that we won together? Is there one that sticks out and you say, man, that was really cool?
You know what? I'm trying to think if there was actually one, but I just remember probably most memorable for me was, I'm just going to say this. I did build this engine, okay, because back, whatever.
I hope so.
So there was three, I did. There was three years in a row for Homestead that I had built the first two Homestead. They won the end of the year, and then I built the third one, and then it won too. So it was like to finish off the season because I enjoyed it because it was kind of like ending the season in a high note, and you know what I mean? Not that I'm walking around, hey, look, I built this engine or whatever, but you still have that little bit of that sense of pride.
Well,
I mean,
you were the last winner for 11, 12 weeks.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's what I'm getting at. But I say that, but it's a team effort, of course. There's so many different people's hands go on it, but it's kind of like I'm putting it together.
But there is something really special about my daughter Olivia says she's praying that Ricky's not listening.
Oh, she got a crush on Ricky.
Sure that Stenhouse gets a copy.
But there is something really special about building that engine. Remember, I told you about building that engine for Davey, and when we won that race in 1991 Charlotte, and it's just something that's special about it all coming together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. I mean, we have 185 employees that work on trying to win this race, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to be that last person in line, I mean, that's earned, right?
Yeah.
The assembly guys are the guys that have been there the longest. They paid their dues. They've done a great job. Everybody in the shop does so much for it. And
well, that's the thing. There's the parts that the guys make, and then the parts that the people inspect, and then the prep, doing the bearings, whatever. But then putting it together is the kind of like the final deal. But it takes that whole team effort, because if it's a part failure, but if it's something comes loose, then that's where it's on me, I guess you could say, right?
well, I mean, that's, you didn't get that far to not be distracted. I mean, you can't build an engine with a phone in your hand. My dad used to tell me you got to focus and really be in the moment. And there's times that I would go back in the next day after I put an engine together and pull the oil pan back off and check main bolts or rod bolts or something, just because that's you live with it, right?
Right, you do.
As an assembler, I mean, you have a process and
Yep.
a system, and you have to have confidence that you've gone through all those steps. And but there's been a couple of times like, man, I got distracted and I'm not sure if I did this or that. But
Same here.
But it's cool. I mean, it's cool to be part of it. And
That's interesting for me. I've never really realized from your point of view of what it would take, like you watching the race and saying, hey, I built that engine, I put it together. I've never really thought about how cool that is from your point of view.
my gosh, it's,
Sure.
everybody, I'm sure a lot of people in the sport started out saying, man, I want to drive a car. Or maybe they used to race go-karts or they did something like that, but they find their spot in the sport, right? Whether it's cameraman, whether it's an engine
dream,
builder, whether it's a spotter, a truck driver, whatever it may be. But it takes that whole team to win that race. And that's the part that it's hard to talk about that on TV because it's, it is about the drivers. The drivers are the superstars, but it's all the people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's what the cool things of sport. And back in the day, back in the RJ Reynolds day, back in the Skull Bandit day, they used to have a Copenhagen Skull All-Star team.
Yep.
And that would recognize the best tire changer, the best right front tire changer, the best jackman, the best machinist, the best assistant engine builder, the best engine builder. And my dad and I won that a couple times. Oh, it was incredible. And those things those are special because for us, I mean, when we won the championship with Joey Logano a couple years ago and Roger Penske called out my name as, special thanks. I mean, man, I thought I was standing this tall.
I know. How about that party, man? That was like the best party ever.
I mean, it's those little things that really make it special. I know my daughters are on here, and Sophia says, "Dad, quit embarrassing Olivia." But it's it's recognizing people. It's that's what makes it special, right? I mean, everybody puts in hard work to do all this stuff, and that's the fun part about it.
Yeah. Well, and I remember building the first one, I think, was whenever Dale Jarrett won. He won the, I don't know if it was one of the qualifying races or what. I need to go back and look, and I probably should remember that because it's my first win with Robert Yates Racing, first engine, in a Cup Series. Yeah. And I remember just jumping up and down and just being so excited.
Well, I remember, this is funny, and we could tell stories all night, but Dirk Bumgarner, you remember Dirk?
Oh, yeah.
His first winning engine. I think we won Pocono with it, Dale Jarrett. Well, we have a compression ratio limit, right?
Right.
And these pistons weren't cut properly.
Oh, man.
And so they poured it at the racetrack, and it was like 12.00.
Oh, no.
Something. 12.02 close.
And you add a little for carbon or a couple of extra off.
And so they came to the shop and poured it again. Yeah. And I tell you that I was never so nervous, but it wasn't illegal. Right. But it was really, really close.
Real close, yeah.
And so
we used to have a cushion in there, but there was no cushion.
There's no cushion. Yeah. And there's, the car guys get a little, if a fender's a little wide or this or that, get a little pass. In the engine builder world, if you're over on compression or cubic inches, you're out of business.
Right. Yeah.
That's a bad deal.
Yeah. Because if that gets out, and Dick Seidenspinner says hello. He said, "Good show. Tell him I'm still unemployed and COVID free."
So, Dick's a great guy. Yes. Yeah, I love Dick.
He's been around a long time. So, you got anything else over there, Phil?
No, sir.
All right. because I'm not going to hold you up any. Well, I mean, I appreciate you coming, and we could talk for 2 more hours. I know.
Yep.
But you got to get up and go to work in the morning. And
yeah, that's right.
I guess got to be back here. At 6.
We got to get ready to win a Daytona 500 because
That's
that is the next one. But thank you, David.
Thank you.
Phil. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate what you guys do. This is awesome, man. I'm really proud of you, buddy.
Well, you need to have like a Roush Yates radio show, and I could be the host. Just think about it.
Well, it is about time to sign off. It must be getting late.
It must be getting late, yes. But my wife she made a comment. David is an example of following your dream by starting this YouTube show. And yes, I did start
That's
this.
right.
I started it 2 years ago in September, I believe it was, because I wanted to do just this. You know, at first I started it to talk about what was going on in the racing that week and all this stuff, you know, and it was okay. I mean, it was just like, it was a learning process.
Yeah.
But what I really love is the history and the times that through the 80s, 90s, and even further back. But I just love the history, and I like to document it because we're all not going to be around forever, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And man, just having people in like you and talk about it, and this video's on there, and anybody can go and watch it and learn from it. It's always better when you learn from somebody that's been down that road before. And I tell people all the time, you need to read, younger people, because if you think about what can put you ahead in life, if you learn something from somebody that's 30 years older, they've already lived that life. Learn
That's
from
right.
them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on pattern recognition. I mean, that's you know, you see something happen enough times, you're like, all right, this is the trend. This is probably going to happen again. And people ask me a lot of times, you know, who's your heroes? Obviously, my dad, Jack Roush, but everybody's got to be their own person. You know, nobody's going to. There will never be another Jack Roush. There'll never be another Robert Yates.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to be the best Doug Yates, right?
Right.
And life is really about family, friends, your health, you know, your faith.
Yeah.
You know, and if you keep those things in priority and try to balance them and have some fun along the way,
That's right.
that's a good day and a good life. And thank you guys so much for having me on tonight. And really appreciate the friendship.
Yeah, man, me too.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Catch up again soon.
Absolutely. We're gonna spin the wheel right quick and see if we got us a winner for the day, win our prize, and I'll get that to you in the mail.
That'll be 3 of those dollar bills from the Winston.
Yes.
Millions.
So we have these right here. All right.
What color?
All right.
Color is blue. Blue is Chad Hyder.
All right, Chad
All
Hyder,
right.
you are the winner. Chad's up in Ohio. He does a little of the iRacing stuff, so he'll be starting his season back, I guess, in February. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Congrats, Chad.
Yeah, there you go. And I want to thank our sponsors right quick.
Jersey Cape Yachts, custom built yachts. Ocean or lake, level out with Jersey Cape Yachts.
There you go. And so you can find them. It's at 609-965-8650 is their number, and they're up in Jersey. But they will get you a yacht or boat or whatever for Lake Norman or wherever you want to go, any of the lakes, any of the oceans, that kind of stuff. So give them a call. And check out my website, DHammiam.com, and my Facebook page, Racing Roots with Hamm. That's ROUTES. And
Hamm,
that's right.
you're a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. That's right. Well, y'all hit that like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And we'll see y'all next Monday.